everyone, it's Mrs. Lamondo, and I am back with Tessa, who has a little boo-boo on her head. And I'm back to read you the Unteachables. We left off at chapter 21, and this is told from Kiana's perspective. No bikini aura. It has nothing to do with bathing suits. It's an anagram of my name. Mr. Kermit has me working with Parker on anagrams to improve his reading. Parker's getting pretty good, but for me, it's just fun. It's amazing the stuff he can come up with. For example, Zachary Kermit can be scrambled into Crazy Tram Hike, or Aldo Braff into Fold-a-Barf. Even Aldo laughs at that one, and he doesn't strike me as someone with a great sense of humor, especially about himself. He looks pretty different when he smiles, like his face is going along with all that red hair instead of fighting against it. Or maybe Aldo decides to be mellow because he doesn't have a lot of choice. His reading partner is Elaine. It's one thing to kick a locker. A locker can't headbutt you down a flight of stairs or any other of Elaine's greatest hits, like chucking a fire extinguisher at your face or giving you a new ear piercing with a fish hook. To everyone's surprise, Elaine turns out to be kind of a serious student, which nobody noticed before, since they were too busy being terrified of her. Mr. Kermit assigns them where the red fern grows, and Elaine is totally into it. So Aldo has to read it too, even though he claims the last book he finished was Hop on Pop. The other reading group is Barnstorm, Mateo, and Rain. This works because Mateo never shuts up, which keeps Ram from falling asleep. Actually, Ram is more awake lately. Mr. Kermit talked to his stepdad, who agreed to move his rock band's nighttime rehearsals to an alternative venue. Guess where? An empty storage garage at Terranova Motors. Sometimes I join the guys because Parker goes to a reading specialist 3 times a week. That makes 4 of us, but really it's just 3 because Ram isn't around much these days. Mr. Kermit got him accepted as a part-time art student at the community college on the other side of the river. Since he draws all the time anyway, it makes sense to send him somewhere that it's a good thing. It's complicated, but it works. On any given day, Barnstorm might have 3 partners, or 2, or just 1. It doesn't make much difference because the only thing he really cares about is puffy tails. Like any athlete, Barnstorm's competitive, but since he's sidelined from sports, all that competitive energy gets channeled into good bunnies. His parade of puffy tails stretches past the basket of carrots, off the poster, and 2/3 of the way across the wall. He's miles ahead of me in second place. Mostly that's because he won't cash them in. He's too greedy. Whenever my line of puffy tails reaches the carrots, I redeem them for a reward. Our class has already had 2 pizza parties thanks to me. Plus, I lent Aldo a bunch so he could pay off the penalties for some late homework assignments. That was Mr. Kermit's idea. He's using puffy tails to teach us how an economy works. We're free to trade them, spend them, sell them, or lend them, but the lenders have to charge interest. Also, Aldo owes me 10% every week, and he's sinking deeper and deeper into debt. You're a sucker, Barnstorm tells me. He's never going to pay you back. It's puffy tails down a sinkhole. He is, so I defend Aldo, and with interest. Using what? He's never earned a single puffy tail. Aldo leaps up. I have 2. I just spend mine on fines and stuff. Sit, Elaine rumbles, and Aldo plunks back down into his chair. Barnstorm won't let it go. Name one thing you ever did for a puffy tail. Aldo thinks hard. I changed the light bulb in the projector. No, that was Ram, Mateo puts in. In frustration, Aldo runs his hands through his big head of hair, which makes it even messier. Big deal. Who cares about a bunch of rabbit butts? I glare at Barnstorm. I have faith in Aldo. Oh yeah, he shoots back? Why? It's a good question. Why would I put my trust in a bad-tempered redhead who was a straight D student? Well, part of it is probably because I don't care that much about puffy tails to begin with. But I think the other part might be Vladimir. 8 classes a day make their way through room 115, and the lizard doesn't squeak his head off for any of them. He loves Aldo. Only Aldo. Aren't animals supposed to have instincts about people who are good at heart? I turn on Barnstorm. At least Aldo's not a tight-fisted cheapskate like you. When this year's over and we're in high school, all those puppy tails will be worthless. You can't take them with you, Elaine adds philosophically. Barnstorm is smug. At least I'll be rich. You're Ferrigny, Mateo tells him. That's a race of aliens from Star Trek. They worship money and profit above all things. Settle down, Mr. Kermit says mildly. We're free to spend or not to spend our puffy tails however we choose. That's how a market economy works. As we settle back to work, I can't help thinking about what I said to Barnstorm. When the year's over and we're in high school. I'm not going to be in high school with these kids. I'll be gone before the end of the semester. How many times can Mom's movie get struck by lightning? But at that moment, the words were coming out of my mouth. I meant them. I actually saw myself finishing out the year in this class I don't belong in the school I don't really go to, and in this town where my only connection is the fact that my parents grew up here. Oh man, I've got to get back to LA, and fast. Chapter 22, Mrs. Vargas. So remember, she's the principal. In all my years of education, the greatest teacher I've ever worked with was a young man named Zachary Kermit. Oh sure, we were dedicated back then, fresh out of college and convinced we were destined to change the world one student at a time. Zachary was different. All the teachers dream of changing lives. He really changed them. The kids had no way of knowing it, but being placed in Mr. Kermit's class was like winning the lottery. It actually got to the point where I'd look out over my own group and feel a little sorry for them because there was a much better teacher down the hall. That was before a Terra Nova incident turned him into a zombie. He went from best to worst. If I were doing my job, I'd have fired him long ago because heaven knows he isn't doing his job. Maybe I see things clearly. Maybe I didn't see things clearly enough because he was a friend. Or maybe I was waiting for the teacher he once was to reappear. But after 27 years, even I had to know that the old Zachary Kermit was gone forever. Well, guess what? He's back. It took the worst group of kids in the whole district to make it happen. That's what brings me to the district offices this afternoon. The first semester progress reports are out, and I can't wait to share the big news with Dr. Thaddeus. We have Vino down here, too. She doesn't necessarily like Tessa, so we'll see how this goes. But after 27 years, even I know the old Zachary Kermit was gone forever. Well, guess what? He's back. It took the worst group of kids in the whole district to make it happen. That's what brings me to district offices this afternoon. The first semester progress reports are out, and I can't wait to share the big news with Dr. Thaddeus. When it's my turn, I don't even say hello to my boss. I march in and place the 7 pages on the blotter in front of him. What are these, he asks. Progress reports from SCS 8, I tell him, prepare to be amazed. He sifts through the papers, giving a cursory scan to each. You're right, I am amazed that an experienced administrator like yourself would be fooled so easily. I'm shocked. Fooled? Look at those results. Okay, the brief summaries, but last year these kids were floundering. It's miraculous. It would be, he concedes, if it were real. Why wouldn't it be real? Zachary Kermit is a fantastic teacher. Oh, sure, he was in a funk for a while. I'd hardly describe 27 years as a while, the superintendent puts in dryly. But these kids and their needs have brought him back, I persist. It's wonderful. It's phony, he retorts. Zachary would never falsify student reports. To keep his job long enough to finish out the year, he would, he tells her. Your Mr. Kermit has figured out what thin ice he's on. He'd do anything to make sure he qualifies for early retirement. Not this, I say stoutly. I admit Zachary hasn't been the greatest teacher up until now, but his integrity has never been in question. Even at his very lowest point, he never claimed to be anything he wasn't. There's a difference in those kids now. It's not just Zachary. The phys ed coaches see it. The lunchroom monitors see it. Emma Fountain sees it. I see it. They're not angels, but they're better. They go on field trips. The local business leader has taken them under his wing. What local business leader? Jake Terranova, I admit. I know it's a little odd. He laughs mirthlessly. Spare me. I reject the so-called wonder of yours. In fact, I've been reviewing the district contract. I'm sure you're familiar with Articles 12, subsection 9. Refresh my memory, I reply warily. He smiles. It states that any teacher presiding over declining test grades in a core subject for 3 straight years can be deemed ineffective as an educator and fired for cause. I'm appalled. You mean Zachary? He's been moved around so much you couldn't possibly blame any class's failings grades on him. There's a formula, he explains. You calculate a baseline using past performances of the individual kids. And it just so happens that Mr. Kermit's students have shown declining results on state science exam for the past 2 years. If the assessment at the end of this month goes the same way, I've got him. I don't even watch my words. That's so unfair. He raises one jet black eyebrow. How can you, of all people, say that? You just told me he's turned his class around. If it's true, they'll ace the test, and Mr. Kermit will have nothing to worry about. I bite my tongue. This man is my boss. He speaks for the school district, and what he says goes. He may be a stinker, but that doesn't change the fact that it's everybody's job to carry out his instructions. Besides, he's just being sarcastic, but in this case, he happens to be right. Zachary really has transformed that class. They don't have to ace the science test. They just have to beat their scores from the past years. How hard can that be? Tests like this one got them placed in SCS 8 in the first place. I leave the office feeling a lot better about Zachary's chances of making it through till June. Still, it can't hurt to pass on a suggestion that he might want to do some extra test prep for the coming science assessment. Forewarned is forearmed. Zachary Kermit is too good a teacher to lose his retirement just because a certain cranky superintendent can't forgive him for something that was never his fault in the first place. When we return, we'll pick up with chapter 23, told from Kiona's perspective. Tessa, do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Here, come on up so people can see you. Hey, you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye, everybody.
See you next time.